Once upon a time, there was a warrior in a town far, far away from the hills, but closer to the town. The warrior was greatly revered by the people who never met him, spoke to him, but only know his stories of valor and courage. One day, with all the expectations of his people weighing heavy upon his shoulders,
he put his headphones on and he tuned in to the ThyGap podcast. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, one and all, to the episode number 15 of the ThyGap podcast. Yes, it is a Thursday. Yes, there's a new ThyGap podcast on. And yes, you're listening to it right now. My name is Bogusnoog, and I'm the host of this podcast. And it is my deep, deep misfortune to welcome the co-host of my podcast,
being Brut, people, the man you love always, the reason that fuels your enthusiasm to listen to the ThyGap podcast.
All right, Brut, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Let's get the scorecards leveled. Brut 1, Bogus 0.
Love all it is, as it always has been.
Nonsense it is, that which is always that you speak.
You want to know what the score on something else important is?
How have you been, Bogus? What's up with you?
I've been okay.
I've been,
Can't really say anything positive in this horrendous year. The way it's been.
Don't even remind me, dude. I have nothing to look forward for. I have nothing great which I can look back on. I have nothing. Right now, I'm looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it can get any worse.
But what one can look forward to is our socials. You can find us at _ThyGap on Instagram.
Right.
At ThyGap on Twitter.
Yes.
And ThyGap it is on Facebook. So
bang
simple.
Bang
so
on.
So simple
Bogus.
it is.
Bang on. Took you 72 days to buy hard that, but bang on. Hard work pays, man. Hard work really pays.
Follow us, guys, and shoot us your DMs. Tell us what you thought of our episodes. Ask us any questions if you have. Ask us why we don't have an email yet.
Right.
And we'll tell you why.
Exactly. And that's a private conversation.
Exactly. We don't want to discuss these things in public.
We don't want to reveal too much.
Matters.
Exactly. But Bogus,
Brut.
Let's be honest to each other. We still despise to sit across each other and talk. Because what do you respect?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you respect?
One, I thought there was an open-ended question.
No, it's a question. What do you respect?
My answer was just going to be nothing, no matter what you followed up with.
Yeah, that's the reason I just waited to see if some sense can spill out of your nose.
It was sensible, With what I have in front of me as I look forward, there is absolutely nothing to respect.
With what Bogus has in front of him, he doesn't even want to compete.
Nothing.
The stature that puts him under so much of pressure that all he keeps telling is so guys, the pressure he feels
in
with
your
some
dreams,
genuine competition.
In your dreams.
Shut up.
Brut.
Bogus?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, you called me?
Yes.
Sitting right here. I don't know why you do this stuff. As if we're on a con call or something.
Who were some of your role models when you were growing up?
What?
Who were some of your role models when you were growing up?
My role models? In what sense? In general? Or is it specific to something that because I have multiple role models. I have a role model for every expertise I have.
Mm.
Starting from me being my own role model. But, yeah, tell me. Don't poof me. Bogus, it's disrespectful.
Exactly. That was the point.
I want respect.
Who were some of your role models?
15th episode and I still have not gotten any respect here.
You have to wait a little longer.
Okay. My role models, there are a lot, and it keeps changing depending on my age.
Of course.
But probably
Tell me, okay, I don't want the first.
Okay.
What I want is when you were adolescent, when you were like 17, 18, 19, 20,
Yeah.
that phase, who were your role models then?
Anton park in the territon varasento and prera and teros candiva.
Oh,
So
all those
there
guys
is,
are great, yeah.
yeah, all of them.
So I actually don't want to influence your answer in any way. I just want to give you that one sentence question
Yeah.
and basically see what you come
Okay,
up
take
with.
it from the top. Give me that question once again.
Who were some of your role models growing up?
Jim Carrey,
And
Michael Jackson, Ajit Agarkar.
wow, and
Dude, there's a list, dude. Ajit Agarkar, Jim Carrey, Michael Jackson, and the kind of people who I can think of is there are a bunch of comedians who I really liked. There was Johnny Liver at some point.
would you say role model?
He definitely did influence me, especially because he was my, peak hole into how Indian comedy was done. Till that time, for me, I thought everything was a scripted comedy.
But did you like follow his life and follow everything?
Not follow his life. Oh yeah, but I did dig deep into the kind of stuff he did as a younger guy. So the first thing when I get really interested by a particular person, right, I go back into the backstory, right, as to how he was as a person, like where did he come from, get his average story, the broad storyline, and then I kind of go into like, okay, fine, how does he make comedy or whatever it is? How did he become such a good dancer or a player or whatever?
Okay.
The longest, biggest role model for me in my life has been Don Rickles. I
Okay.
came across Don Rickles about 6 or 7 years back when I was trying to, get onto the dark side of comedy, that is stand-up comedy. And I just didn't know how to write a joke.
Don Rickles, for in case anyone is not aware, is said to be one of the pillars of the art form of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, he is one of they say if stand-up comedians had a Mount of Rushmore, then Don Rickles would be one of the faces on it.
And he passed recently in the
Couple
recent
of years
past.
back, a few years back. But Don Rickles had a very lasting influence on me.
Got it. So now that you've given me names of people from various walks of life,
Yeah.
if I had to ask you to define
Huh.
your definition, just give me your definition of what a role model is. What do you think about that?
It's a reference for me, in plain, simple English.
What kind
You are
of reference?
interested in it. Let me complete my answer, Bogus.
What
Don't
kind of? This is a rapid fire question.
This
You're
is
on the
not,
hot
you
seat.
didn't tell it
What
to me.
kind of question?
You didn't put across
What
that.
kind of question?
Read this 49 rules which are there before
Sir,
you answer my question.
Sir, answer the question, please. What kind of question?
What kind of question? What is the kind of question?
I meant what kind
Do you
of reference?
remember what you are supposed to ask?
What kind of reference?
It was a reference that made me much sharper and hone my skills.
No, I mean,
skills.
what references are you trying to take? His hairstyle, his dressing sense?
No,
What are you
none of
taking?
them. None of them, Bogus. None of them. These are references of the way he told a joke, how he presented himself on a stage. References which I could use in my act. And I could never use this in my act. Never. Never. Ever. Never. Ever. Never. Ever.
No further questions, Your Honor. Okay, so
Yeah, so the references were basically taken on.
no, but what's your definition of the word role model? Like, what do you think about it?
Like I said, it's a reference of, for instance, it's like a reference book, right? You have somebody in action who was already doing something that you are interested in doing, and you see a connect of, okay, I also want to do this, and this is the best. He's the best person in what I want to do. So, I should also kind of take reference of how he went about doing this. It's a lot of this and that I told, but to paint a picture, because you're dumb. If I want to be, say, a banker, okay? No, banker is a bad example. I can't relate to that. say this. Okay, look at it this way. I want to become a good sales guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then my reference would be within my team. There will be that one star performer, right, who's like killing it. So what I would be doing is and if he's like a brilliant guy and he's the guy where I want to be, I would technically consider him a role model within that circumstance where I say like, hey, I want to know how he goes about the job so that I also can probably do better than what I'm doing already. Like role models are the references for you to grow one step above in where you are. That's my answer, Your Honor.
Now answer me this.
Yeah.
How do you see the word role model or the concept being processed or being understood conventionally by people in general?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you see the concept of role model being processed or understood by people in general?
Understood. I don't know if I have any comment or opinion about how it is understood, but how it is processed from what I see, right? They are very blurred lines, you know.
What do you mean?
For me, I feel it doesn't stop where it's supposed to stop. It goes into, into the realms of obsession or fanaticism or, to an extreme level.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're supposed to go there, get what you want and move on, right? But people tend to like it kind of get stuck. It goes into an obsession.
Mm-hmm.
I understand certain affinity towards that person who is your role model, but it becomes like an obsession, which is, I feel, is dangerous. It can't be like an obsession, like you're doing or following everything that they do, which I think you also have the same point.
What?
That you also feel that people do this a lot.
Yeah. Do this a lot in the sense that what I feel honestly about the concept and why we're talking about role models is because on the surface...
Let me break you right there. Before you go into this answer, just for the sake of being on the same page, can you tell me what is your concept of role model?
So my concept of role model is, like you said, reference.
Okay.
That you take certain references from. For example, I think an even better example could have been if someone is your role model that is not connected to your passion in life or even your occupation in life, then...
Can you have a role model in that scenario?
Yeah.
Like what? But how will you use that? How will you use...
So that's what. So you're taking reference of their attitude or their approach to challenges in their life, how they went beyond those things, the characteristics or traits.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay,
showed.
that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
So I feel in that way it's more interesting. So that would be my own definition. But conventionally, when you look at it, how the way it is being processed is there are a lot of risks and there are a lot of loopholes, and I would say sinkholes even, that probably are not talked about that much. And it took me a while to realize, because when I was in my adolescent years as well, I had role models too. But then...
Can you name a few?
Well, there were a couple of people in my family, extended relatives, like that, male figures. Then there were... so sport obviously plays a huge role. So for me, the first one ever to take that slot was Kapil Dev.
Oh.
Yeah, and there were some in the cine field. There are musicians, artists. Yeah. So for different reasons, like you said.
Yeah.
But
different walks of life, different role models.
Yeah. And the problem was, then I realized after a while, it took me some time to realize that, okay, we shouldn't actually be focusing on the person that much.
But, which I agree to.
Because end of the day, people are always flawed. Right?
Okay.
Everyone has flaws. We can't take, for example, there is someone I knew. Okay, let me put it this way. Someone I knew, senior person, was extremely good at math. Okay. But extremely brilliant, extremely good at math. Kind of the reason why I even have any interest in geometry still.
Is this Ramanujan?
No.
Oh, okay. Because you seem to be of the person that age, so.
Oh, right. So
yeah.
But at the same time, I also knew that this person, when it came to very basic things like haggling, when buying things, negotiation or bargaining,
Right.
absolute zero. Like, could not understand where he was. He used to look lost.
But how is that bad?
It's
Or
not bad.
It's a flaw, you're saying.
It's a flaw.
Oh, fair enough.
And, it's a practical application that is being failed at.
Right.
You could argue that maybe a skill like haggling or negotiation is far more valuable than someone's deep knowledge of mathematics. Theoretical knowledge of mathematics.
Yeah, but it stands.
It's a real world skill, right?
Yeah.
So what I mean to say is that one pitfall is, they call it like the fallacy of authority or something. I don't remember the exact term, but basically it means if you got famous or popular in one walk of life, now you start using that fame or your stature to basically let loose your hot takes on everything else that is unrelated to, what made you famous or the field that made you famous.
So is it that power dynamic, or do you think that because they are designed that way as a person?
No, I feel it happens to a lot of people, but they forget sometimes that even if
where they came from, or
where they came from also, but also the fact that what it was that actually got them prominence, what a skill or activity or action that made them popular, and if their comments have anything to do with that. Are they really speaking within their area of expertise, or are they stepping out?
Right.
If they step out, should they be treated the same way? That's the question.
Right.
But what we see happening is they are sometimes treated the same way when they should not be, because the expertise isn't there.
Right.
So the few of the pitfalls that I've seen with the whole concept of role models is, especially when it's taken to its extremes, I've come across examples. Like, you were saying something.
No, I was just scratching my back. But yeah, go on.
So how on the surface it comes across as an innocent little thing, right? The whole concept and the idea of role models, having a role model. Oh, you have someone to look up to and you're emulating someone else's example, right?
Yeah.
But underneath that, there are a few risks that I feel like it's important to call out, because at least no one mentioned those to me proactively until I kind of figured it
Yourself.
Later on.
When I came into your life.
No. I mean, you were an example for how not to do or not to be in so many situations. So that way it helped for sure.
Yeah, this is going out in the edit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's processed or it is understood or interpreted in so many different ways that the right way, of course, matches with what you described as your definition, which is you take it as a reference. You're just referring to certain traits of someone else.
Right.
And you think there is value in that, so I'm going to try applying that in my own real life situation and see what happens.
Yeah, the important word there is try.
Try.
It's not a compulsion for me. It's not something that I feel, even if I'm not liking it, I'll still continue doing it because that seems to be the right way.
It's an experiment.
It is purely, you can call it, I will go as far as calling it a hack. Because somebody figured it out.
Yeah.
Maybe, I might do it faster, or probably I might be able to skip.
Shortcut. Yeah.
Right. But if it doesn't work out, it's not breaking me apart.
Right.
It's not like making me fall apart.
Right.
On the contrary, I'm like, okay, fine. One way is negated for me. This won't work for me.
Yeah.
And that comes from the bottom foundational principle that I'm a different person to my role model.
Exactly.
I come from a different circumstance. I can't go down to poverty just to take the same path. It's not about imitating the path, though the definition says that you need to imitate the way someone does it, but it is purely to take a reference according to me. So we can go to Oxford and ask them to change the definition of a role model, because it is kind of misleading a lot of people.
I think they use emulate more than imitate.
Yeah.
And emulate is where you can say it is talking about taking a reference, right? What I see conventionally happening is the extremes of how role models, the concept is interpreted by a few people, is where they tend to lose themselves, in
In a delusional world of the role model.
well, they tend to lose themselves in favor of the role model. So their whole lives, or not whole lives, but a large part of their life now becomes an active engagement into the life of the person who their role model is. And what I noticed was they tend to take these surrogate dopamine hits from events that happened in their role model's life. And
Wait.
let me explain that with an example.
No. First of all, stop using these heavy words. Surrogate, dopamine,
Hits.
hits. Like, I don't even know if dopamine hits is one word or two words. But yeah, go ahead with your explanation. I'll get my pillow.
So what I mean by that is, you notice these people who get so into sports personalities, right? I'm not talking about people who get into sport a lot, but the sports personalities.
Yeah.
And also celebrities, to a point where temples are built for a few of them who are even alive.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I get where you're going.
So in these cases, what happens is, if I'm that person, it looks like whether something of note is happening in my life or not doesn't seem to be
Important.
It seems to be of secondary importance
Yeah.
compared to what's going on in my idol's life. Like, if my idol really succeeded today, my day is made. I feel like I've won.
Yeah.
I'm getting a dopamine hit
Yeah.
from the fruits of someone else's labor,
Right.
basically. And I'm feeling good about myself when maybe I don't deserve to. I mean, I can feel happy for him that, I follow this guy and he succeeded. But to take pleasure or to take that dopamine hit from someone else's efforts,
Right.
and passing it off as something maybe you did or you contributed to, because we do see those cases, right?
Right.
It's like, we contributed to
Yeah.
this thing happening. And
I am the so-and-so person's fan association president.
Yeah.
So, I am equally contributing to his success.
Yeah.
God knows how.
exactly. And that's what I mean exactly by surrogate dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Which are not even from their own efforts, but it's from someone else's efforts. And they're just taking pleasure also in the superficial aspects. Like someone's movie, some hero's movie makes like hundreds of crores after release. This guy's celebrating. He's buying crackers and he's celebrating.
Yeah.
And it's...
That is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, like, I agree to the fact that, yes, at what point do you not make it personal?
Yeah.
You need to figure out, you have to realize at some point that, hey, this is not my life.
Right.
My life is different. In the same note, I want to tell a story about Cristiano Ronaldo, where in an interview, and a British interview, and Ronaldo generally doesn't go into talk shows, and for a good reason, I feel. So when he went to the interview, they started bringing up all these pictures of his son and all that. And there was this one picture where his son was having the tattoo of Wayne Rooney, who was his ex-colleague, ex-teammate.
Right.
And the interviewer was, what will happen? How will you react if your son comes home with an actual tattoo of, say, Messi, who's your rival? And the answer to this question, how Ronaldo did it, I felt was very well put up. He said, I would not be angry because, like, Messi is a fantastic player.
Yeah.
And that only shows that my son has a good role model.
Right.
He's not going behind, a subpar person, but he's going behind one of the best guys who ever was there to play the game. So that is my take on it, right? But I would still want him to be a player of his own credibility, right? I don't want him to like start trying to, I mean, yes, you always try to pick up things out of who you idolize, but at the end of the day, he needs to have his signature on how his playing style is, or what kind of a person he is, etc., etc., etc. So, and that is a very interesting story because what you need to understand is there is a very aggressive rivalry that
Right.
goes between Messi and Ronaldo's fans,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily between them.
Yeah.
They compete it in a very healthy way, right? But the fans get so aggressive.
Yeah.
And this is where I don't understand as to why should you, okay, you like someone else, fair enough.
Yeah.
How is it making my role model or idol any lesser or any more than your role model?
Exactly.
This is where I don't understand. This is where I feel that people take it to a completely different level. And it's not role model, but it might go under, what do you call it? Fanaticism.
Fanaticism. Yeah.
Fanaticism. So that is it. I feel you need to draw a line. You should know where to draw a line of how far will you go in idealizing the person, like your idol.
Yeah, and even there, they're going for the surrogate dopamine hit, because it's like, if I get into a fight with you and I am successful in putting you down because of whatever reason,
Right.
now my role model automatically is better than your role model because of
It makes zero sense.
because of the chiller fight that you and I had. just
Right,
now.
right. And they're, for all I care, those are also like adopted facts, or they are like fabricated facts.
Yeah.
Because your source of facts and my source of facts are not coming from the horse's mouth.
Right.
We are debating on statistics. We might debate on, if it's, and this I see a lot in political, affiliations. When two people are arguing about politics, right? It so happens that it's no more about what is their political take or stance, but it starts happening that your politician like did this much of scam,
Right.
and my politician just did this much of scam, so my politician is better. And I'm like, okay, fine, what is his stance? But like, how is he benefiting? Is he doing his job right?
Yeah.
So that way, I don't know how. I feel that the concept of role model kind of takes a hit and goes into a backseat.
There's a lot of pitfall when it comes to focusing on personality and focusing on people, because at the end of the day, people are flawed. And this is the other pitfall that I was getting. The first one was the surrogate dopamine hit thing.
Yeah. One
And
term
second
I
one,
don't understand.
and there's different examples also that I can quote from very
From Instagram captions.
no from seemingly unconnected sources.
Okay.
So which is like you might have heard this saying, right? Like great people discuss ideas, and the lower level people discuss other people.
Right.
And then something else.
Mediocre people.
Mediocre people discuss
People.
Something something like that. So
Great minds discuss ideas.
Yeah.
Great people discuss something, and then everybody else will discuss something. Yeah.
so the lowest form is very
I put zero clarity to that.
exactly. Thanks for that contribution.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a pretty popular saying. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we can.
It's there on
slide
majority
by.
of the corporate walls.
Yeah. So even that is focusing on that a concept, which is it is a higher thing to focus on ideas more than focusing people.
True.
Right. And also, there's another guy called David Mamet. David Mamet is one of the world's most famous playwrights, and he's also written some famous screenplays
Okay.
for movies. For example, Glenn Ross, in which Alec Baldwin makes his first appearance, and he has that legendary monologue at the end of the movie. It's about sales. Always be closing.
Yeah.
A, B, C.
Yeah.
He has that.
You know
monologue.
what is this? This is a fucking Rolex watch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So David Mamet, in a video, he was asked to share some good tips for writing,
Right.
like playwriting or screenwriting.
Right.
And he said, try to avoid a situation where you have two characters talking about someone who's not there in the frame. Or he said, at least I try to avoid
Right.
as much as possible
Right.
situations where there are two characters in the frame,
Right.
and they're talking about someone who's not in the frame.
Right.
Because when you're talking about someone else, he looks at it as a lesser form of entertainment, or he looks at it as a cheaper form of, or a cop out,
Okay.
basically.
It's like a shortcut.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut. It's like you can just show two people bickering about some other guy
Correct.
who doesn't is not there in the frame.
Which is basically he's saying that don't write a screenplay like a podcast where two people talk about
Everything
the
else.
person who's not there in the podcast.
Yeah. But he was not talking about podcasts, so it doesn't apply here. But so what he was saying was, if you have two people in the frame,
Yeah.
why not let it be a conversation between them, about their ideas?
Right.
So it shows more about this character, where they're coming from.
Right.
And so it doesn't always have to be about, what the hero is doing. Did he wake up? Did he eat
Yeah.
food and all that crap?
Champestarani.
Yeah, exactly.
Tammudi champadu.
So you have David Mamet saying this.
Yeah.
You have that popular saying,
Which I just decoded.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
So if you look at all of these things, and then you look at what happens in the concept of role models, at least what I've seen conventionally,
Yeah.
is that it becomes so much about the person. There is an unhealthy obsession about the person to a point where they are forced onto a pedestal that is taken very high.
Yeah.
And I see some very insidious stuff going on there.
And which I feel bad for the role model in himself or
Yes.
themselves, because they are not even aware of this.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, once they get aware of this, right, it becomes an easy blame game
Right.
for the normal person to like put it on that guy,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel that how is it his problem? Like, why is it his problem to solve something that you didn't understand?
Yeah.
Which I don't know, dude. Like, the more I think of it, right, which is another question that popped into my mind, which is like, if you're not looking at a person or the person himself and just taking his ideas,
Right.
what is the difference between inspiration and role model? Because inspiration are also it's just a snap of an idea that clicks with you. Right?
There's no difference.
There is no. You can say that.
Yeah, because if you're taking reference from a role model and not focusing on the person, then what's happening is you're taking in inspiration in the most ideal form. It's not tainted by any personality or its flaws.
Right.
It is pure idea that flows through people.
Right.
Like it has always flowed through people since time immemorial.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
there is a difference.
it is the proper way of taking inspiration, I feel. But what's happening rather is the
extreme
focus on the individual.
Yeah.
Building such a high pedestal to them, like building temples for people who are living. What's happening?
So sad, yeah.
What happens as a result of that? You know about the stories where Michael Jackson had to go put 4 hours of prosthetics on his face just to be able to go to a supermarket.
Yeah, to a mall. And
he just wanted to walk around a supermarket. We've heard stories about how Devanand could not go out to take a morning jog in his black tracks.
Right.
Because he would be mobbed.
Right.
Rajesh Khanna couldn't do it.
Right.
And there are so many examples of these people.
When you said that jogging ka story, it was like what would have started off as a leg workout would end up as like a full body workout.
Cardio.
Pushing people away.
Yeah.
And you're like escaping.
Yeah. It's such a sad thing, I feel, because these people have turned around repeatedly, time after time, and said these things to us, to the rest of us, which is, hey, by the way, I was just like you. I had the same kinds of dreams and ambitions. And when I reached that stage, I felt like I was at the top of the world.
Right.
But then the next day is when the trouble started.
Right.
There's so many of them that turn around and say this.
Right.
They pass on the same message. And they also say, when I walk out and I'm mobbed by so many people, I lose so much of my agency.
Right.
I lose my privacy.
Right.
And, hands and legs go everywhere, like all places. You have so little control when you're mobbed by people.
Yeah.
And especially if you're an actress or someone beautiful.
It's so, I mean, dude, like that is something that I feel so bad for them.
Yeah.
Like I have a principle. You can say, I have a principle that if I ever see a celebrity, right, I will let them be. I am more than happy to see them how they function as a normal person,
right,
than me rushing to them and say like, hey, can I take a selfie or can I take an autograph? Or like, I mean, it's just, imagine, it's a very simple thing, right? Like you just went to a supermarket and you're not able to do what you went there because there are 10, 15, 20 people around you, asking you favors, which you're not even entitled to. Yeah. You don't have any obligation for that. But there is this undue pressure that if that celebrity rejects one selfie from one person, Reddit or Quora or whatever public platforms are filled with this plethora of stories saying that this happened to me. Nobody who got a fair selfie never writes a good story about them, which is so unfortunate, right? They might have given like thousands of selfies or an autograph to so many people. And you need to understand another thing, which I feel the problem with understanding of a high performing person, right, is they are playing a game of extreme high responsibility, accountability, and untold pressure.
Yes.
Right? They play a game of expectations which we can't even fathom.
The levels of anxiety.
So many things,
self-doubt.
Right? The pressure that must be going on in their minds, the kind of stress their bodies might be taking, because they have the same number of hours that we have. And they do so much more. They are supposed to do so much more.
They squeeze a lot more out of those hours.
Right?
Than the rest of us.
And that's what I want to learn. If I come across like, say, a Sundar Pichai or a Jeff Bezos or whosoever, right? Who are like this high performing individuals.
Right.
What I want to understand is, okay, what's your secret of time management? Is it just a secretary, or you have like a mental map about it? Okay, that's what I want to know. I don't care, like, okay, fine, tell me how many hours do you sleep? Like, how do you go to sleep? Like, do you get peaceful sleep? I don't care about that. So that is my take of role model. Like, I mean, I want to know this stuff. I don't want to know, or I don't want to like barge into their privacy or go into their space just to like spoil that environment for them.
The discomforting thing about that supermarket situation is that we all know and understand deep down that the fabric of reality is being broken a little bit when that happens, because the kind of reaction you give to just another human being who's just like you,
right?
But you're now behaving in a way that they are not just another human being, and
or they're actually behaving like just another human being. My biggest fear of role model, and this is like a real fear of mine. I'm sorry, I'm been cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
Is, so when you have a role model, right? It is imperative that you have this big image of him. You have this, exaggerated
pedestal
image of him, right? Yeah, you put them on like a pedestal.
Yeah.
So my fear is, say for suppose, so Jim Carrey is my role model, right?
Okay.
And I look forward for the day where I'm in a room with Jim Carrey and I'm like able to talk to him one-on-one. If given a chance, yes, I would love to do that. But my fear is, what if Jim Carrey is the dullest person I end up talking to?
Which is also a saying that never meet your heroes.
Right?
It's
because
a popular one.
The whole delusion or the illusion of why he's so great, when it shatters, I don't know how I'll deal with it.
Right.
Imagine I end up that Jim Carrey is this unnecessarily philosophical guy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just asking Jim Carrey, like, hey Jim, like, okay, tell me about, how funny do you think you can get? Right. And Jim Carrey goes off into some philosophical line saying
he does do that.
Yeah, like imagine happening it to me one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right. I'm expecting him to give me this, profound answers.
Yeah.
But not philosophical answers, right? And then I end up realizing that Jim Carrey has a bad breath.
Right.
Right. And then I start realizing that Jim Carrey shakes hands after digging his nose.
Right.
Right. All these things. And then I'm like, shit, dude, like he's nothing like what I thought.
Yeah.
And my whole, appreciation of him as a role model for me kind of dissipates.
I like that example, because what's going on in that example is your impression or perception of this role model, which initially was built on ideas and personality traits, or things that they did.
Right.
Now they're being colored or influenced by his personality, that the things that he did in person,
right,
which have nothing to do with the actions.
Yeah.
But just the few minutes that you spent with him now makes all of that also like get devalued.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Like how will I react? And that's my biggest fear. Yeah. That's the reason, maybe that is also one of the reasons, to be honest, that my principle is I will not go and stuff my face into somebody's this thing.
Right.
And I'll tell you one incident, which is actually, it's not a bad incident. So one of my biggest hacks to be a better skillful person came from Anil Kumble.
Okay.
It's a very interesting story because so you remember the match where Anil Kumble took 10 wickets in the same innings?
Yes, who
right?
doesn't remember? Yeah.
Right? And I remember it vividly because I followed the whole innings, bunking my school or whatever.
Right.
And I had a huge thing of watching the the presentation ceremony also, because that's where people used to like ask questions and they would tell about things, right?
Yeah.
So Ravi Shastri asks Anil Kumble, saying that what was your game plan?
Okay.
At what point you started going behind the 10 wickets, or when did this idea came, blah blah blah.
Right.
And Anil Kumble simply said, I didn't worry about my weaknesses. All I focused on was to work on my strengths, because that's what were getting me wickets. So I didn't bother about the loose ball that I bowled. The next ball I was always planning to bowl according to my strengths, which are like 4-5 variations or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of hit me that, hey, this guy makes a lot of sense in what he just said. Why do I have to worry about my weakness when there is no ceiling to my strength? Right? So that happened. Now, cut to like 10-15 years. It was a midday flight that I was taking from Bangalore to Hyderabad. And I see this huge figure in front of me at the boarding check-in section. And I was thinking, like, why is this guy so huge? He turns around. Guess who it was?
Kumble.
Anil Kumble, right?
He is a huge
Very
guy.
simple, super huge guy.
Super huge guy.
Broad frame.
He has a daunting presence, actually.
Yeah, and he looks taller than how much he looks on the screen, right?
Much bigger.
And he's just about 6'2" or 6'1" or 6'2".
But he just looks...
but he still looks like, oh God, like this guy is tall.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I couldn't stop from saying, because I was that close proximity, right? I just started smiling at him when he turned back. And I think he was in a hurry, or God knows what happened. Like, I don't know in what situation he was. And before he passed me, I couldn't stop myself from saying that, can I take a picture? Right? It just came off organically.
Right.
And instantly I started biting my tongue, like, I shouldn't have done it.
Because you saw him rushing.
Yeah, he was rushing.
Right.
Already there was some kind of a conversation. I mean, he was there for some time. He was there for a good 5-10 minutes, which is a long time at a check-in counter, especially for a VIP, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was some altercation or whatever.
Right.
And he was like, not now. And he went like 5 steps ahead. And then he turned back and he just said, okay, come. That's all he did.
Right.
And obviously I went and took the picture. He just gave that smile, and he was very polite about it. But I kind of felt like, dude, I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I kind of felt guilty that I went behind it for what, right? And if I would have been any kind of, if I would have been too rigid about this guy, just because of that incident, I would have devalued the biggest lesson he taught me unknowingly.
Right.
Right. And that's when also it kind of reassured me, saying that, dude, just let people be.
Yeah.
Right. Because they will give you what they have to teach you. Anyways, your job is to keep your ears and eyes open.
Yeah.
And then forget about what happens, because end of the day, they run families. They have their own work pressure, etc., etc.
And it's an airport. Like, who's ever in a good mood at an airport?
Exactly. Right? Unless Ranveer Singh, maybe.
Oh, God.
I keep seeing Ranveer Singh having all kinds of fun at airports. But I don't know. But you get what I'm saying.
I get what I'm saying, because I get what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
you stop getting what you're saying.
I mean, I just can't help it. But it's also that the situation, or it was not the right context, because it was not like he was walking into a book signing.
Yeah.
Written by himself.
Right.
And so there's a time specifically allotted for taking pictures with fans.
Right.
So if it was like that, he's also mentally prepared.
Right.
To be grateful for his fans and take pictures with them.
Right.
But if it's an airport, right, when there's all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
That's really, it's not, and that's again something that we have to change. Because it's not just an elite bunch of people getting famous anymore.
Right.
It's also the everyday people that are getting famous because of the internet. And, this can't go on too long if this is going to be the norm, where tomorrow all of a sudden some unknown person is going to skyrocket. And
see, we have examples of that.
A lot of examples.
Like, look at that guy. What is he called? Bhau. That guy who... Hindustani Bhau.
Yeah.
He's a normal guy. Yeah. He's a guy who eats gutka, or I don't know if he eats gutka or pan or something.
Well,
but he looks like a normal guy. He looks like that guy who I can relate to, because I grew up in a Maharashtrian lane.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody in my lane spoke the same way or speaks the same way he spoke. Speaks, right? So I can relate with him. saying that, I can make sense of how he must be at home.
Right.
And today he's giving press conferences, he's giving, political opinions. He's like gone to a different level, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and I think something recently happened where Instagram took down his account or something.
I guess I'm not following up on that.
Whatever. Like the news, I think it would be great if people can correct me. I think his Instagram account was taken down, right? And there was a press conference post that. And I was thinking to myself that why? Like, why are we putting him on a pedestal?
No, but I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not that it is wrong if you put anyone on a pedestal. That's what I feel. Because people have to be treated as people at the end of the day. We should
my point is
come to a situation where even when we come across these people in public, right? Unless the situation or the context is appropriate for that kind of an engagement or, hounding them,
right?
We should not do it. But that's a very lofty, idealistic thing. But another great example that I wanted to bring up was Dhoni. So what happened in Dhoni's life?
Anything that you talk about Dhoni is a great thing.
Right. So the contrast that happened in his life.
How cold can you be that you can just brush away from my joke by just saying, right?
Was that a joke? Because
it was an intense joke, dude. It was a dark humor. I thought you liked dark humor.
I didn't see how that was dark, especially. But anyways.
Yeah. Moving forward.
So what I want to compare this thing is what happened after the World Cup win.
Right.
And the status of, demigod status, basically.
Right.
But then also the situation where his house was stoned.
Yeah.
And there was damage.
2007.
Yeah.
World Cup.
And if you look at these two extremes, I find both of these wrong. Like the demigod level of pedestal.
Yeah.
And also the stoning of the house.
Burning his pictures.
Both of these were equally extreme and wrong.
Yeah.
And I think both of those should be tempered. But this is where I want to get to the real ugliness that I see. And let me know if you have the same thing or if you think different about
I'll
this.
let you know. Sure.
But the real ugliness that I see is the reason for pushing people up so aggressively on such a high pedestal is also self-serving for the people in some way. It is a kind of escape mechanism where I'm going to put this guy on a pedestal so high, his achievements are my achievements, and if he does something wrong, then he's answerable to me. Like I'll rant off about him, I'll yell at him, or all that stuff. So basically, he's a punching bag, or he is a dopamine source, whatever. But what is going on in your life? Are you taking any leaves from their book? And are you making your life better or your situation better? That takes a backseat. No one cares.
Yeah. They become like, it's very inhuman, at a level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's dehumanizing.
Yeah. Like, which is why I have a lot of, I don't know if I can say that, but I have a certain amount of sympathy to all those people who became celebrities out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for Dhoni is a celebrity out of nowhere, right? He was... everybody knows his story. Like he's TT collector, blah, blah, blah. Then came, didn't do well, skyrocketed to fame. And I feel like, and this guy is a simple guy. He has money to do it, so he's doing it, which is fair. Same thing with Shah Rukh Khan. I find this a lot with Shah Rukh Khan, where he gets, he doesn't consider himself victimized, but he becomes a victim of any and everything that he does, which I find it really ridiculous. He goes, buys an IPL team. People have their own conspiracy theories about it, right? There are so many things that happen in personal life that everybody starts like digging deep and like getting out bones which are not even there. And similar thing I started seeing in Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson's fame is no joke, because at the age of 19, he became like the heavyweight champion at age 21, if I'm not wrong.
Dude, right? He had a pet tiger.
So kind of things
that itself tells you like how famous he was.
And then nobody came to rescue him. No public sympathized or anything when his downfall came.
Yeah, there's pet tiger levels of fame, and there's having breakfast on a naked model kind of fame. Eddie Murphy. All these are like insane levels of fame that are like...
Justin Bieber. Like he got a monkey. He bought a fucking monkey.
Yeah.
And what will you do if you have that kind of money
Yeah.
at a stage where you don't have any financial or family commitments,
Right.
right?
You get a tiger.
You get a tiger because you've done buying everything that is there to buy. Now you want to buy things which are not in a shopping mall,
Yeah.
right? Now you're going anywhere, you see something, you want to buy it. And this is a mistake of people. Like, it is bound to get to your head. Imagine a billion people telling that you are the greatest, like, I don't know, you're the greatest singer ever.
Yeah.
That this country in its total history of 20,000 years has ever produced. You're a human.
Right.
It will get to your head.
Yeah.
At some point, you will feel immortal. At some point, you will feel like indomitable, right? You are like the best ever. And you will do dumb stuff,
Yeah.
right? And kudos to all these guys. All said and done. May it be Sachin, may it be Dhoni, may it be A.R. Rahman or all these guys. With all this admiration and like, yes men around them and all of that, they still manage to be what they are. At least, they look clinically sane. They look like guys who have a plan in their head and they know how to go about things. They kind of conduct themselves in relatively decent manner, right? If I was in their position, I'm pretty sure I'll throw tantrums left, right, center. Like, I will say, I will do anything and I might lose my tag as a genuine role model also. Like, even Federer, by the way, right? You're talking about the most sold face, most trusted brand ambassador. There's so many tags attached to him. And he's like the perfect role model, right? It is easy for them to like slip on a step, like to make a wrong move.
Yeah.
And it gets obviously inflated like into like 10 power 9 times.
Yeah, there's that unwanted accountability that comes with being a role model, which is why I feel no one should accept it. I feel everyone should actively reject it. If someone says, "Oh, you're a role model," immediately stop them and say, "No,
I'm not.
I'm not. I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah.
As flawed as everyone else. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not anybody's role model. Don't put that on my head."
Sorry.
Yeah, because all the accountability that comes with that it's not something really people ask for. It's just thrust on them for no reason. The only reason is because it serves as an escape mechanism for some other douche that is not taking responsibility for themselves.
Yeah.
They just want to thrope that accountability on someone else.
Yeah.
So that it's easy to rebuke or it's easy to take that nice dopamine kick from a safe distance. And that's what I see happening with this extreme version of this role model keeping.
Yeah.
Where they're very happy to use that as an escape mechanism.
Or a cushion for their failures.
Yeah. It's just low and it's petty, and it's also a risk that unwitting people who are not naturally towards that inclination, they also see other people processing it that way and they fall into that trap where they start looking at people as role models rather than their ideas or their characteristics or their traits. And it's just
what got me thinking?
a slippery slope.
You know what got me thinking? I started thinking like, okay, fine, where do we go wrong in understanding this concept? Because you remember in school, like in primary school, you always have to write that my hero composition or my role model. Or never?
No.
What kind of dumbass school did you go? No wonder you turned up like this.
No,
in school,
it was when the quality of education was slightly better by the time you came around.
See, obviously, when you're the classmate of Ramanujan, when you're the classmate of Ramanujan, okay, you're comparing two different ages altogether.
Right.
You didn't have a lot of syllabus. They were trying to figure out syllabus for you.
We were making the syllabus.
Stop putting yourself at a pedestal.
We were discussing.
For all I care, you are 6 feet under. Okay. But okay, coming to the point that I was making. But you have heard about this, right? Where in school, students, like kids are asked to write a composition about my hero or my role model. And
possibly,
stuff like that.
I don't know. But it happened to you, you're saying, right?
It happens to every normal average kid, Bogus.
No, I mean.
But anyways,
yeah.
There's no point putting this point across. You must be sleeping in the class. When they do that, right? A lot of people don't write names of individuals in their composition. A lot of kids, they write stuff like they write professions. They write professions like my hero or my role model is a fireman. my role model is like a hunter or is like a policeman, etc., because they, they kind of they kind of are told by the teachers that you need to tell why you feel he's your hero or why you feel he's your role model.
Okay.
And majority of them also write, I'm not done yet.
A, I doubt if that's true. And B,
it is how it is done.
I think the most common answer is father.
Yeah, I was coming there. Majority of them write my dad.
Right.
Right? Who is your hero? My dad. Who is your role model? My dad. So I'm thinking, where do we go wrong with the concept of role models? You know what I mean? Like, at what point does it become personal?
I can tell you. When you're an innocent kid, right? You're a boy, you're growing up, and you come across this concept of role model. And if you think, oh, my dad is my role model, for example,
Right.
I'm not talking about you in particular, but just a boy. My dad is my role model. And that works well for a while because my dad is my hero. I see my dad doing all great things.
Yeah.
But then as I'm growing up, I see more of my dad now. I see there are frailties. I see there are weaknesses. I see that there are possibly defects of character as well. In a general
So
case. Let me finish.
Okay.
So what happens there is,
Don't point your finger. Stop pointing your finger at me.
what happens there is a dissonance that gets created, which is,
Can you break down dissonance now?
you mean
please?
like disconnect?
Okay,
He was my role model. Like he was perfect. That's what I thought. But now I'm seeing something which is not what I would classify as a role model-y behavior. And then
Like he beats me. How can he be my role model?
anything, if a son sees his father being corrupt, if a son sees a lack of ethics.
I think even simpler, like if his son sees him getting angry.
Just an example.
If he's corrupt is too far. I think even the small.
Even if it is
aspect.
abusive to his mom, let's say, domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So now there is that disconnect that happens, which is, I thought he was my role model for XYZ reasons. That still happened. But now I'm seeing him doing something else, which does not fit the definition of a role model. So was he ever my role model, or should he still be my role model for the good things that he did? Or is this whole role model thing itself bogus?
That is where I wanted to check out. If that is true, right, then the whole concept of role model is thrown out of the window. But what is happening here is the concept of role model is becoming personal. And when I say personal, you're mixing two worlds under the same umbrella. Like you mentioned, your role model's life achievements are your life achievements.
Yeah.
Right? How are we ending up there is my question.
Yeah.
Why isn't it easy to understand that, hey, I'm a different person to him, right? I have a different background to him. There's so many things which are not the same, right? At any image, maybe there is an exception where it is almost the same,
right?
But majority of the things are not the same. So my job, or it's obvious to pick on things which I can inculcate, rather than me trying to imitate this person. And in the process of imitation, I start trying to live his life.
Yes.
Where I start living his birthdays. I start celebrating his anniversary even though I'm not married or whatever. Right? And he buys a Hummer, I'm happy for some reason.
Yeah.
How do we take that wrong turn? Like, how does it go into that direction?
When you say personal, I take that to mean as because persons are involved in this conversation or in this outlook. It is person heavy. It is more about the person than about a characteristic or a trait. It is more about that person now. Right. The obsession is more there.
So you're saying that it's more about the source rather than the outcome?
No, I'm saying it is more about the channel than what is being channeled. For example.
So you're saying it's more about the TV than the show?
No, I'm saying it's more about the radio than the frequency it's catching.
Okay, so you're saying in other words, that it's more about the washing machine than the clean clothes.
No, what I'm saying is it's more about the kite rather than the wind that is blowing that causes the kite to fly.
Got it.
Right. So
Stop laughing.
So
you know,
what
the
was I
moment
even
you start
saying?
laughing after a good
You
joke.
caused me to forget what I was even saying in the first place.
Like, whenever you laugh at your own joke, right? The essence.
I was not laughing at my own joke, by the way. I was laughing at the bit.
Which
Which
my
involves
idea.
you.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. You're laughing at me, which is also not a great thing.
I mean, I laugh
But
at
what were you
a
trying to
lot.
say, Bogus?
What I was trying to say was, when you say personal, I take it to mean that it is persons involved. And that is where I see it goes wrong, which was your question. Where does it go wrong? Or where do you see it taking that wrong turn, right? The very concept of role model, and it's very important we pay attention to the words that are being used, because in some way the words fix the meaning or the significance. In some ways,
Yeah.
the words themselves lock down on what it means. So when you say role model, the words themselves are focusing on a person. It is not a role ideal. It is a role model.
But
So,
isn't role model a synonym of ideal?
I don't think so.
What is the difference?
Role model, role model is a very personal thing. Like, you always imagine some individual as
Okay,
your
then
role
what
model.
is ideal?
Oh, you mean IDOL?
Yeah.
Oh.
What do you think? IDEAL?
Yeah, I thought you meant
No,
ideal.
that's ideal.
Yeah.
I said idle.
But your
what is the-
pronunciation, bro. The lack of spoken English classes, so
Bogus.
I have to accommodate for
Stop
flaws,
blaming.
because you're also a human at the end of
You
the day.
need to go to a ENT specialist. Okay? Make a note of it. The next time you point a finger at me, you better make this note and then do it.
Right. I made a note and now I'm pointing a finger right at your face. Stupid little face. Okay,
Feel
pointing
the
done.
threat in the silence. But okay, now coming back to the point which you
Yeah.
conveniently digressed. Then aren't idol and role models synonyms? What is the difference if they are not?
I think idol is you're not really looking to take any examples or leaves out of their book. Idol is just who you idolize.
You just like admire them and
They are at a
leave it to that?
distance. They are at a distance. They're not on your level. They're out of your league.
No, but people say that, right? He's my idol to become like a great actor. He was my
They're out of
idol.
They're out of the league. They're automatically pushing this person out of the league when they say idol. And what happens when you push them out of your league? Even though the reality or the truth is even that person is just a human being such as yourself. If that person applied themselves in a certain way and achieved something, that means even you can apply yourself, figure out who you are, find your strengths, and achieve something on your own.
So you're saying that's a better concept?
Idol?
Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is, in idol, there is that distance caused. You're pushing them apart.
How is it wrong?
If you say someone is just a great actor,
Right.
he's a good guy, he's a great actor,
Right.
then you're appreciating their craft.
Fair enough.
But if you build a temple for that guy,
No. I'm not going to extremism
but
of
idol
idols.
is literally what
Come
that
on,
means, right?
idol can also be.
What do you think are there in temples?
Okay.
Idols.
Oh, come on. See,
Claps.
I will slaps. It's not claps. It slaps to your face. What I'm referring to here is, see, there is this concept of respecting a person for what he has achieved
Yes.
in what you also want to achieve,
In
right?
your walk of
in
life.
your walk of life,
Yes.
right? So you respect them. Why? Because they have shown you a path,
Yeah.
directly or indirectly,
Yeah.
and it's a form of gratitude, or you can say it's a form of respect or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So idols are, so for me, Don Rickles is my idol, right? How is it wrong? It is, and I am putting him at a pedestal, saying that nobody who I ever came across in stand-up comedy came even close to what Don Rickles did on a stage with humor, right? It's a big statement.
Can I answer that question?
I gave a statement. What question are you answering?
Don Rickles is my idol.
Right.
So how is it wrong?
Right.
So the pitfall or the trap I see is where you yourself stand to lose. Because if you use the word idol and if you accept and agree to that, to let it sit in your mind that this guy is your idol, tomorrow, even though Don Rickles is not alive at the moment, but let's say if it was someone who was alive, right? Let's say Don Rickles himself is still
Take
alive.
Jim Carrey, okay, just for the sake
Don
of the
Rickles,
conversation.
let's just give a longer lifespan to Don Rickles.
Fair enough,
Why
which
not?
he deserves.
Yeah. So let's say Don Rickles is alive and tomorrow he comes in
Comes to
front
my
of you.
house. Yeah.
He comes to your house.
Yeah.
Not comes to your house, but you happen
I
to
bump
run-
into him.
You bump into Don Rickles.
Right.
if you use the word idol to yourself, the more you use that word to yourself, the harder it would be for you to have a normal conversation with the guy when you run into him unexpectedly. Who loses out of that situation?
I don't think so.
I think so.
See, for example,
It's a subconscious programming. It is self-programming.
I'll give you an example. When Chris Rock, right, who idolized, Eddie Murphy,
Okay.
right, when he bumped into Eddie Murphy, because he was his idol, he wanted to give his best performance, which actually pumped him to be better than what he normally is, which pushed him. So I think it's a matter of perception. It's a matter of how you take that whole concept of idolization, right?
Yes.
And this is where I have a problem. And I'm going to quote a cliche which I've told it time and again in our conversations.
As you always do.
The problem here stays in the language. The concept of, the whole thing with these vocabulary and shit, right? It gives too many meanings to the same word. And it's how you use it or what meaning you choose to use. For me, idol is someone who I look up to and I respect. It's not someone who I'm pushing away from my reality or the reality of where his stature or stance is.
So that's
and this is my subjective take. I'm not saying this is a normal take.
Right.
Whether it is to be taken into consideration or not is purely somebody's prerogative.
So that's what I'm saying. I was talking in the more conventional sense.
Yes. So, but I don't think idols generally. See, good guys, smart guys, right, are always looking for these opportunities of meeting their idols so that they go a step further.
So if there are a bunch of smart people who process and interpret the concept in the right way, then yes, there's nothing, I'm not saying anything against that. But when you see that a vast majority of people are absolutely processing it in the wrong way, and you see it every day, then you can definitely say that there is something wrong going on with this concept. And like you said, it is the problem with the language itself.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to get at. The very word, role model, in itself is flawed, I feel, because the word focuses on the individual rather than what they did or why they are well known.
Which I agree to, and that is a different problem altogether, which we might cover some other day as to how do you actually make the best use of language? Like how do you understand, how do you inject intent or how do you extract intent out of a very linguistic sentence or a literature,
also
which is a huge art.
Also the slippery slope of definitions, because definitions tend to keep changing over time
and over circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What might be a glass half full today is not the same for you tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Like the same thing, like how you're saying, when you become the best in what you are, the next day the trouble starts coming in.
Yeah.
Right? Trouble start knocking your door. In a more practical way of putting it across, all your life you fight for a lot of money.
Right.
Then there comes a day where you earn a lot of money. Right? And then you start seeing the problem of having a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? So there is definitions. You need to be, I think we are digressing. I'll put an abrupt end to that.
No, but basically it's the same point, which is once you get there, is you realize I still have to wake up tomorrow. I still have to attend to the same chores.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what level I got to in some imaginary virtual kind of platform, but life still rolls on. And
I'll give my final thoughts about putting this whole role model thing to perspective. It is always best to look at your idols or role models as a point of reference with respect to what you want to extract out of their actions.
Right.
Than separate, art from the artist. That is my take. What happens behind the stage is not your prerogative. It's best to learn from. It does put you in another gray area, right? As to do you want to encourage a bad guy or etc. etc.
It becomes a tougher pill to swallow, and that's the reason why I feel not many people look at it that way, because it becomes a much tougher pill to swallow when you are acknowledging that this person who achieved so much in their life,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, is just like me.
Yeah.
So that puts a lot of pressure on you.
He's
now.
the same perverted guy who goes behind girls. Like,
Yeah.
all kinds of nonsense.
Like, he may have a lot of flaws just like me.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, he's still achieving so much.
Right.
So now if I admit to that, then it's putting a lot of pressure on me now. Ki, what the hell am I doing with my own life?
Right. Right.
You know, when I look at someone like that.
Correct.
So that is an uncomfortable and inconvenient place to be. And so I'm not going to focus on that too much. I'm just going to put a pedestal
Yeah.
nice and high and make him separate, call him an alien, call him God.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
Yeah. Make him like the toy in the showcase.
Yeah. And so whenever anyone asks, whenever anyone compares you with that guy
Yeah.
and says, how come you're not like that? And you just say, oh, I'm just a lowly guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a god.
Yeah.
He's alien, bro.
The
He's like superpowers, bro.
The easiest thing to do to escape performance
Yeah.
is to accept that you're not talented. like to portray that you're not talented. Because the moment you say, hey, yeah, I'm decently skilled, and you know, the conversation goes to like, now that you're skilled,
Right.
do something about it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what was my final sentence, but yeah. Another thing that I also want to say, which gave me a whole different perspective to go to the top.
Mm-hmm.
When Federer said, the tough part is not to become number one. The tough part is what follows after you become number one.
Yeah.
Because now you're no more the guy who's who's no more challenging someone, which is the easier thing.
Not the underdog anymore.
You're not the underdog anymore. The expectations are set. You are almost demanded to like perform and win every match, every game every serve you do, you're expected to win a point, right? It goes to that granular level, right?
Yeah.
You can't make a flaw in one shot. You can't do an unforced error, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, he said, the easier part of life is to become number one.
Right.
But the tougher part of life is to stay the number one.
Yeah.
Which I felt like, oh shit, this just made things. Suddenly I don't want to be number one because there's too much pressure there.
Yeah.
It almost became like repulsive for me.
It's a very important question I feel that we all have to ask ourselves is, do we really want to get there even?
Yeah.
With all that comes with it.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Or is there a better bargain that maybe we should think about?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I guess that about concludes our episode on role models.
Yeah.
I find it a very fascinating topic, Brut. And I thought, I'll pick your mind about, is it all a rosy picture? Is it all innocent as it seems on the foreground? Or is there something ugly and unseeming, underneath the surface? And I feel that there are a lot of traps, as we called out a few of them in this episode.
Yeah.
And a lot of pitfalls that it would be good for anyone in general to be aware of or bear in mind.
Yeah, it's a whole concept of holes. That's what this is. And interesting topic. I would not deny that. Again, something I feel that in general we don't dig deep into to understand.
In general, no.
How do we go about idolizing someone?
The entirety,
the
entirety of ThyGap podcast has been to talk about things that we don't generally talk about.
Yeah, like in the length in which it is supposed to,
right?
Rather,
right.
So that's a service,
Yeah, and guys, if you really appreciate what Brut and I have done in this episode, focus on the podcast, not on us.
Yeah,
just follow.
Exactly.
Subscribe. And
I'll go even further in saying that focus on the podcast where I talk, the parts of the podcast where Brut talks, and not on what Bogus talks.
Yeah, I would say exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah.
As well.
Touche.
You decide. You're the audience.
Yes.
You have the power. But all you have to remember at the end of the day is
ThyGap podcast. Subscribe.
And share.
And share.
And so, like every other time, the culmination of the main topic in our episode leads us to the next segment, Brut, which is
the Parcel section.
The Parcel section. Of course. Brut,
the fan favorite.
What do you have for us today?
Oh, I have a very interesting movie which I again go back to the old age of the good old Western movies.
Old is gold.
Old is gold. And it is kind of, rhetorical to what we just discussed, ironically, right? The name of the movie is My Name is Nobody.
Oh.
It's a brilliant cast, which is the two main people of the movie are Henry Fonda. You know of him?
Of course.
And Terence Hill. Do you know of him?
Of course.
So these two guys, brilliant movie. I'll get into the story real quick. Henry Fonda is this about to retire gunslinger in the West who starts off, he's on the verge of going to New Orleans, get on a ship and retire. That's his story, right? What happens is he encounters with this guy who keeps claiming that he's nobody.
Right.
Okay, which is played by Terence Hill, who was actually sent to kill the Henry Fonda's character, whose name is Jack Black.
Jack Black, yes.
Yeah. So, but what happens is in the course of their conversation or the time they spend together, this person who's played by Terence Hill,
right,
kind of, gets fond of Henry Fonda.
Right.
Right. And he starts liking him so much to a point where his admiration kind of goes off the charts. And he keeps pushing this character, Jack, to go out in a bang, to retire with a bang.
So nobody is looking up to the Henry Fonda's Jack because Jack is a famous gunslinger?
He's a very famous gunslinger.
Right.
Right. So he is looking up to him and he is not satisfied with how he's ending his career. So he keeps pushing this idea of, hey, you have to go out in a bang. You can't just go out. You're one of the greatest heroes ever that the West has seen. So you need like a big bang ending. To a point where he convinces the character of Henry Fonda to fight like 150 rogue, or what you can say is it's a gang known as the Wild Bunch.
Okay.
Who are like 150 gunslingers again. And he somehow convinces him to like take them head on, like single-handedly. And he falls for that. And Henry Fonda says like, yeah, let me do it, whatever. Like I am a man who's retiring as good as dying or whatever.
Right.
So he actually takes them and he wins that battle. Right. But the movie doesn't end there. I don't know if I can reveal the climax.
Would it spoil the movie for someone?
Yeah, obviously, because it's the climax.
Then don't reveal it, bro.
Right. So you dude, guys, check it out. Because Terence Hill is known for his goofy acting in the West. Like, he brought the comic element into the Western movies, right? And he's a great artist. Very, a lot of people don't know him. But I find him to be a great actor. Henry Fonda, obviously, is one of the greatest actors from back in the day, right? So it's a good equation to see the chemistry between a guy who doesn't like someone always at his tail. Right. And at the same time, this guy is not leaving him. And he's kind of basically pushing him for a bigger cause, right? He's kind of pushing him to deliver something that Henry Fonda never thought of delivering. Right. So how that chemistry works and how it actually ends, which reveals why this guy was actually pushing or going behind the character of Jack, the best gunslinger the West has ever seen.
Right.
Is a beautiful, beautiful ending. So that's my recommendation. My Name is Nobody. It was made in 1973 or something like that. It's a color movie and you can find it on YouTube. So it's easy to watch.
Awesome. For my parcel this week, I also have a Western movie.
What?
And something else that's similar. Henry Fonda is also involved in this one as well.
What?
I know, right?
Yeah.
So this is a movie called Once Upon a Time in the West. And it came out in 1968. It is a spaghetti Western movie.
What is a spaghetti Western movie?
I'm glad you asked, Brut.
Shit.
Spaghetti Westerns were a genre of movies where the Western cowboy movies were being made in Italy because the topography and the houses, etc.
suited
the Old West, which they found it hard to replicate in America. So, but they found it a lot easier and cheaper to shoot that in Italy.
Okay.
So
interesting.
these movies were called spaghetti westerns, and they were directed also famously by an Italian director called Sergio Leone. And if that name rings a bell, that's because Sergio Leone directed The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Oh,
Yeah.
I knew that.
And also the Dollars series of movies with
A
Clint
few
Eastwood.
dollars more, fistful of dollars.
Exactly.
Intense.
Exactly. So Sergio Leone made this movie as a contrast to his earlier spaghetti westerns, which were more fast-paced and more action-oriented. This one, though, is more slow and it's more meditative in its pacing.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts off, there's barely...
Wait, Sergio Leone is the director of this movie?
Yeah, he's the director.
Do you know who's the writer of My Name is Nobody?
Who? Sergio Leone?
Yeah.
Wow.
What a coincidence.
Exactly. What a quinkydink.
Yeah, but it was directed by somebody else. It's Tonino Valeri.
Right.
I don't know if it's a famous director.
But again, an Italian guy. So that was what was going on with the spaghetti westerns. It cost Hollywood a lot less, the Hollywood studio system, to shoot these movies.
But it did give a lot of employment for Italian guys.
A lot of employment in Italy, what you see happening in Vancouver these days, in Canada. But, it was a huge boost to their film fraternity.
Right.
And Hollywood also stood to gain a lot from the cheap production because the returns were huge. And so in this movie, like I mentioned, right, there's barely any dialogues. There's very few words spoken, and also you don't see the action coming. All of a sudden, it erupts into violence.
Yeah.
And then it calms down again.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme of most of those Western movies. Right?
Although the other spaghetti westerns were a bit faster paced. This one is a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And it starts off with the main character, Charles Bronson's reveal.
Right.
And if you know Bronson, you know he's that stoic, stone-faced protagonist. Not too much said, not too many expressions given. You basically are wondering what is going on in this guy's head.
Also, just to give an insight, I'm sorry I'm butting in, but this deserves to be told out. Charles Bronson was apparently the most macho guy, even off screen.
He was known to be a macho guy.
He was not just plain macho,
right?
But he actually, volunteered in fire accidents. He went about helping people. Not very big about money and all, and he did all his stunts back in the day. Which I think a lot of people did, but he did some dangerous stunts.
Right.
And he was actually really, really strong, apparently.
Right. And in this movie, Charles Bronson's character is called, he doesn't really have a name, but the other people in the town, they call him Harmonica. Because every time he's on screen, there is this harmonica tune playing in the background.
Right.
And it's become so famous with the movie, of course, because the music of the movie was composed by none other than Ennio Morricone.
Same with My Name is Nobody.
Right, because he was composing the music for all of these spaghetti western music.
Yeah, so for all of you guys who don't know this particular music director, a little more trivia, a little, drawing a parallel to you.
Yeah,
Hans Zimmer. So guys, for all you guys who don't know Ennio Morricone, right? He is Hans Zimmer to the power of at least 100 back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Anything he touched was gold.
So, he was called a harmonica because no one knew what else to call him.
Yeah.
And there's a lot behind this character. He comes with a deep flashback and he's basically out for revenge. And he's out for revenge against something that happened in his childhood. And there's also the main plot of the story revolves around this town that is being built out in the Wild West, and a railroad is being built for that town. Now, a little bit away from this town called Flagstone, there's a piece of land called Sweetwater, where it's a natural source of water.
Yeah.
So someone anticipated ahead of time that the trains might need the water to clean and the maintenance. So they invested in that land, and they also anticipated that the railroad would go through this piece of land.
Right.
So they invested ahead of time, and they were going to reap a huge benefit because of that.
Right.
But the railroad tycoon who got notice of this sent his goons to intimidate
and
the person
procure the land, encroach the land.
Yeah, the person who owns the land. So he sends his goon. His goon is Henry Fonda. This movie made a lot of waves because until this movie came out, Henry Fonda was known as the blue-eyed superstar who could do no wrong.
Right.
And he rejected the movie, actually. And so Sergio Leone tried to convince him to accept the movie, but he didn't. So then Henry Fonda went and spoke to Eli Wallach. Eli Wallach is the guy who plays Ugly in Good, the Bad, the Ugly. So he told Henry Fonda that this will be the best time of your life. Go ahead and do it. So that's when Henry Fonda accepted, and he came dressed to the set, full dark features, dark eyes. And immediately Sergio Leone said, no, I want the blue-eyed guy.
Right.
Remove the contacts.
Right.
I want you to be the blue-eyed guy.
Right.
And then I want to show you doing some horrific stuff.
Right.
And it was a huge thing when it came out because nobody looked at Henry Fonda in that angle. And
as a villain, basically.
As a villain. Yeah. And the kinds of things he does in this movie, it came as a huge shock to people, and that became a talking point as well for the movie. So Henry Fonda is a goon. He becomes an antagonistic force for Charles Bronson's harmonica. And it turns out the politics around the railroad and getting that whole Sweetwater land in control was not the only driving force for harmonica. There's also a woman played by Claudia Cardinale, Italian actress. She comes to the town claiming to be the guy's wife, the guy who actually owned Sweetwater land.
Right.
Henry Fonda would go and kill him, actually. So she comes saying he's his wife, and so she's the rightful heir.
Right.
Whether she is the rightful heir or not is a little up in the air. It is doubtful, not confirmed. But she's also another angle into the story, and she is beautiful beyond words. Takes your breath away.
Okay.
In the movie, but all of these things come together, and the true motivational force behind Charles Bronson's harmonica is revealed later in the movie. But the whole meditative pacing and the music and the atmosphere is basically why you should watch Once Upon a Time in the West by Sergio Leone.
Yeah, guys, the movie is almost as long as Bogus's description of the movie. So, you know what, you're already ready for sitting for so long, as well watch the movie.
Yeah, that's about it. And, well, brings us to the end of the episode, Brut.
Yep, episode number 15. ThyGap podcast. Subscribe.
And share.
And share.
Hey, thanks for listening. You can follow this podcast on Spotify to get notified of new episodes every Thursday. We're also on Apple Podcasts for those of you who have partaken in the forbidden fruit. If you liked what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Say anything like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. A rating and a comment really helps us out. It's free, and I'm told that's a great price. But enough about us, huh? Tell us about yourself. Leave us a comment. Our Twitter is @ThyGap, and we are _ThyGap on Instagram.